Juraj Slafkovsky has hit another level, and no, it's not just the goal scoring. Even though he's been doing plenty of that, there is one more aspect to this that we have to show you that makes this even more impressive. We got to dive into everything Juraj Slafkovsky, plus a quote from Laraque on the future of Joshua Roy that has some Habs fans a little bit fired up, and we got that, plus a little outlook on the next stretch of games, which in our opinion is probably the most crucial stretch of this season. There's a bunch of stuff we got to get into coming up on this episode of Habs Digest, and guys, if you want the Habs to make the playoffs, hit the free subscribe button down below because we will be keeping you up to date every single day. Statistically, half of you watching this are still not subscribed. We got all the Habs content this year, next year, many years to come. Stick around for the ride with us. Jesse, let's start by taking a little look at this upcoming stretch. Now, this is going to be one of the tougher parts of the season. We got Florida, which I think we have 3 more times the rest of the way out, at least 2. And then we got another set of games there against Ottawa, New York, and Philly, 3 prospective wildcard teams, not to mention another tough game against Cup contender Colorado, and then the St. Louis Blues thrown in there as well. Jesse, to me right now, Montreal has been playing great. They got a lot of points out of this West Coast road trip. Sucks to not get any points in Calgary, but getting 1 point against Seattle on a back-to-back is great. Right now, looking at this stretch ahead and looking at the playoff situation with Montreal 1.0, to me, what would you say this is the single most crucial stretch of games coming up right here?
It's going to matter a lot. Like every game is going to be important. You have to feel like it's going to come down to that final one, but especially for right now when you see maybe New Jersey Devils starting to go down and maybe Columbus now being the target, like it really matters when you see your opportunity to strike, which 1 point away that the Montreal Canadiens capitalize on this. So of course this is going to be big. But, you know, the Montreal Canadiens, in their defense, play very well against good competition, and they're playing well when it really matters the most. So for me, Nick Suzuki, that top line, as we're going to get into, like, they are just passing the litmus test right now, and they are just treating us, you know, as fans. And really, people around the league right now, they're starting to become believers. Like a lot of people are starting to feel like, yeah, no, Montreal, I don't care exactly what the odd makers say, like 1 point out with this much hockey left to play, like they have a very legitimate chance. So it's going to come right down to the wire. But I mean, if the Montreal Canadiens can really impose themselves, there is a world here with this amount of games left where they can securely kind of get their spot, which in the ideal world would be the best result here.
I think a lot of places have the Habs. It's still like around a 15% odds at making the playoffs. That just goes to show it's not even necessarily a knock on Montreal. It's how competitive it is with so many teams on decent streaks. But speaking of decent streaks, like we'll talk a bit more about this when we talk about Slafkovsky later, because there's some more stats we got to dive into on that front. But right now, since the Four Nations break, you just look at the goal scoring, Jesse. Depth goal scoring is going to be the death of Montreal. If they can, not, I don't want to say the death of Montreal, I should say one of the bigger challenges moving forward this season, because they've been able to get points without too much depth scoring. But you can see that first line carrying hard right now. 17 goals combined since the Four Nations break by the first line. Rest of the team, I think, is probably close to about the same, if not even less. I didn't do the full math, but really it's just Caufield, Slaf, Suzuki, and then Laine and Hudson who are really contributing in terms of points. So right now, again, I'm hoping to see some depth scoring from Montreal over these next few games, Jesse. My opinion is like, look, Laine's been a point per game since the Four Nations break. I still think he is that X factor. If we can get him going a little more even strength, that could be a big difference maker, especially for that depth moving forward in this stretch.
If Patrick Laine stays hot to finish off this season, we're going to get into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And really the big thing with Patrick Laine, it's like not so much of him being hot as him just being in the lineup. A little bit of a streaky player, but like with the Montreal Canadiens, he has extremely good point production over the games that he's been here. If he can be healthy throughout the rest of the stretch, he's going to get his points. So I think that he's really key to all of this. He knows it, and he's contributing right now.
I'm excited to see it again. Like a few point per game guys right now. And again, we'll talk about Slaf a bit later. But let us know your thoughts on this upcoming 6-game stretch. Let us know what you think the Habs' record will be in these games. I mean, look, I think you got to win at least 4 if you want to stay in the race. A lot of the other teams are hot right now, so leave your thoughts down below. But we're going to move on quickly to Georges Laraque. I know some people are probably already typing their comments. Look, it's fun to listen to George sometimes. Don't always agree with his takes, but I wanted to show you what he had to say here about Joshua Roy, and let us know what you guys think about it. So he had this to say. I think, now this is translated from French, and I will link the original tweet with this video clip down below. It is in French, but so I think that after this year, we won't see Joshua Roy in Montreal anymore. He will become a trade asset, and they will move him. There's no room for him with the Habs. There are too many young players, and he's not someone I would make room for. As he went on to say, Jesse, that we got guys like Demidov coming over. Really, one of the only roster spots opening on the forward side is like, we got Armia and probably Dvorak, but then we already saw Owen Beck and Oliver Kapanen are both going to be fighting for that center spot that Devo's going to leave behind. As for the winger, Armia probably won't be back, might be, I don't know. Regardless, Demidov's going to come in and take that. Right now, Joshua was having a good year. 0 points in 6 games with Montreal so far, but he's been Laval's 3rd leading scorer. Do you agree that there's really no room for Watt? This is maybe a hot take for me. I don't think, first of all, that he's going to get moved like Juraj seems to think, but I do kind of agree that it's going to be extremely difficult for Watt at this point to guarantee himself a spot in this lineup next year, especially if Kent Hughes goes out and trades for another big name forward. What do you think?
I really like Joshua Watt, but you have to feel like a couple prospects could get sent out this summer. That's for sure. I'm a believer in his game, and I think right now is a big part of his audition and what he does right now with the Montreal Canadiens. That being said, we know like a lot of young players takes a little bit of time to develop, but it is a fair point, Josh, that Joshua Watt needs to avoid that mushy middle where he's not quite skilled enough to play in the top 6, but he doesn't quite have that hustle to play in the bottom 6. So for right now, it's going to be really important for him to decide, what type of player am I going to be? You obviously, like Joshua Watt, he's going to want to gravitate towards being that top 6 player. And, he's going to need to make a decisive decision on that right away. Might not even be the worst for him to maybe focus a little bit more on that bottom 6 role to really secure that. But again, you want players playing to their potential, to their play style. But it's fair to say we know that some picks, some prospects, if we're looking to make some big moves happen, besides the roster implications, this is something that needs to happen for the Montreal Canadiens. That being said, we can't undervalue the fact that he's been the leading goal scorer for the Laval Rocket. Is a big reason why they're first place in the AHL right now. So for me, I think that gets a lot of brownie points, not just for myself, but also for Kent Hughes as well. He's shown he can light up the lamp. He can be that type of player in his really first year of kind of playing professional hockey with Laval there. So again, I got a lot of faith in this player, but he's really going to need to hit the ground running, decide which type of player that he wants to be, and do every move to really make sure he executes on that.
Yeah, there's the pressure's on. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, again, if he doesn't get shipped out this summer, which, I mean, who knows? Maybe he could be. Like, he's one of those guys that fits the bill of, like, on another team that has a bit more space for him, he could end up thriving. I don't know, especially if Montreal is on the road to pick up like a real 2C. Wouldn't shock me if Wall was part of that package, right? But if he's not moved out, the training camp this coming year is going to be intense. So we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on Joshua Wall's future. I think we're both on the same page. Like, he might get sent out, he might not, but at the end of the day, like, this lineup is going to become a tight squeeze. And right now, this is his chance to separate. We'll just have to see how he does. But final thing today, look, there's one winger on the Habs that has been absolutely dominating. We'll roll these highlights again for you guys. Oh, this is just from last night. Look, I know the Habs lost, but what a snipe there from Slaf. Identical, basically, to the other. Well, this one here, that might have been a high stick. He thought it was, but it wasn't. And look, the Habs just had a great game otherwise, but Juraj Slafkovsky, Jesse, as we showed earlier, is currently up to 10 points in 9 games since the Four Nations break. That first line is absolutely rolling. He has identical stats to Caufield since the Four Nations break. But the big thing with Juraj Slafkovsky that we wanted to talk about are his hits. Because right now, after last night, Arber Xhekaj took the lead by 1 hit on Juraj Slafkovsky. They were tied heading into last night's game in Seattle. How insane is it that Juraj Slafkovsky is right there at the top of the Habs in hits while also having this incredible second part of his season? 40 points in 62 games now. Not to mention, he's been fairly disciplined this year. Only 27 penalty minutes. Feels like everything is coming up Slaf right now. But this in particular, the physicality, we knew it was there. But the ability to dominate play with it, especially over this past little stretch, has been unreal to witness in terms of his development.
Love that old school hockey, especially if we're getting to the playoffs. We got guys like Heineman, Xhekaj, Slaf, all ready to lay the body at a moment's notice. And obviously seeing him shooting a little bit more, I think is a big part of Slaf's game. Like, if he could unlock the shot, like with all the toolkit that, Slaf has, obviously he's making some great stuff happen. But like, what I'm loving the most about Slaf's game right now, Josh, Slafzilla, aptly named again, going full Zilla mode, is that it's intentional. Like he said after the break, I'm just going to play more physically. It's not even a good enough of a sample. Like, I shouldn't have been waiting this long. So he's totally manning up. He's stepping the table. He's knowing what he needs to do. And like, I brought it up in the show in the past. We've talked about it before, where it's like, this is a recipe for success, where it's like, he's playing physically. He was actually quoted on that saying, like, I want to play physically so I can kind of get guys tied up. They can come scoop up the puck and then we can go score. And obviously that's been such a great recipe, where it's like, win a puck battle or tie somebody up physically. Ideally, Nick Suzuki's getting that puck, feeding to Caufield, which is, showing some great chemistry. They're getting kudos, even from Rick Tocchet the other night, saying they just didn't have an answer for this first line of what they're doing together right now, Josh. And what Slaf is doing, I want to bring this up because I think it has greater implications closer than we think. And that involves our 2C and who we want to bring there, because the way that this first line is playing right now, Kent Hughes, who's always thinking about the future, what's on his mind is like, would Demidov be better? Obviously it's going to take a little bit of time, but like ideally, is he better paired like on this first line, or should we kind of orchestrate, a second line kind of around him, knowing that we probably want to keep Slaf, Zooks and Caufield together there, because they just work so well. So for me, in a lot of ways, obviously Demidov's a skilled guy, but like bringing in that size, that serves a function on that line. Like for me, that's serviceable. It will continue to bear fruit in the future. So it's like, do I want to get a centerman where it's like, I'm going for kind of like two lines type of vibe with line 8 on there as well? It really kind of shapes that, given what type of 2C you want to get, given that this first line is actually functioning so well right now.
That's a great point. Again, now we're on like sort of year 2.5, I guess I would say, of them actually playing like a lot of minutes together. Now, look, they've toyed with the lines a little this year, a lot more last year. And, when Slaf first came in the league, he was lower in the lineup. But right now, like, you can see that chemistry that honestly a lot of the time only can get developed if you play with each other for a long period of time. And like you said, even a decent team like Vancouver, who's also in the playoff hunt now, again, they were short Quinn Hughes and there's some other stuff going on there, but whatever. Like their coach, look, we had no answer for them. And last night they were easily the best line in the game again, right? Like, so it's been unbelievable to watch them work together. And I think you might be right. Like, right now, you got to let those guys ride until it just stops working, which I don't think it ever will right now. Suzuki's on pace for by far a career high. Caufield smashed his career high in goals. Slaf might hit the 50-point mark. He has a real chance to do it. I think, we got 17 games left or something like that, or no, maybe yeah, something like that. I don't know how many exactly, but not too many games left, or maybe it's 15. Still, doesn't matter. Slaf is getting very close to that 50-point mark. Cannot wait to see what happens. Let us know your thoughts on Slaf, the future lines as well. Is Demidov going to play them? Are we going to keep this first line? There's a lot to consider, but a lot to look forward to as well. That'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for watching every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.